Hey guys, what's going on? Shah here, and today I really just want to quickly talk about a strategy that a lot of higher end Guardian Druids have been trying to use and exploit to try to min-max their damage in a key. And I just want to talk about what that build might look like, how it's going to work, and kind of show you some footage. This is going to be a very probably choppy video. I don't really have this planned or scripted at all. So let's quickly talk about exactly what the strat entails. So the point of doing this is to be able to go into a key, get more damage out than usual, then you're going to end up leaving the key, swap to a different tankier build, and then go back in. So this could be talents that you would change gear. This isn't as much of a strategy anymore because you can't change gear inside the dungeon. So what some classes can do is they'll use it for the first pull and then run out. As long as you can easily get out and back in without causing too much of a time loss, this is a good strat. Some Warlocks do this strat, and some classes will do this in things like the other side. What our Warlock might do sometimes is, if I come to here, we'll go to DOS. What we'll end up doing, we'll just go to like a new route here. So what we'll end up doing is we'll come down, we'll do the first pull, we'll woe skip to Ardenwell. This whole time he's playing Desterlock, we'll pull, we'll pull fucking huge. For the Desterlock and serve damage, we'll just get these like gigantic pulls going onto Urn. And then after we come out of this place, instead of him following us back, he will port out of the key using his dungeon port. Obviously that's the only way he can really do it. And then because we killed the boss already, when he comes back in the key, it'll port him right here, and we'll typically be meeting him here. So the rest of the key, he might play like Demo Lock, for example. It's because the rest of the dungeon's more single target focus with smaller pulls, like the drill, boss fights, of course, and Takar's Wing. But what Guardian Druids can do, not in the other side, of course, but in a key like Necrotic Wake, which I'm going to actually show off in a little bit here. We'll just do a new route. So what you end up doing is a lot of times this pull is pretty big, especially on like higher fortified keys. Now you don't need to do this unless you want to in like anything lower than like a 23, 24. The point of doing this is to make this pull a little bit easier by utilizing Incarnate. So Guardian Druids can really only do this if you can easily access the exit of the key. The exit of the key is, as most of you probably know, the exit is right here. You do this pull right here. So you can quickly, right after the key's done, you run out, you swap gear sets, you come back in, and you continue on with the dungeon. Benefit of doing this, you'll end up doing about 20-ish% more damage, 20 to 25% more damage, and it's going to give your group a little bit of time for cooldown recovery after this pull, as well as you. So you need time for your Incarn to come back up for the first boss, because most groups will they'll pull him with either a center pack like this, or what my group does is we actually pull him with Stage. We do this pull with Spear. And having Incarn for this point is really, really good. Other dungeons you can do this in. I've seen some groups do this in halls. It's a little bit more difficult in halls because you have to kind of run all the way back out. But I've seen some Guardian Druids, why is that selected? You'll do like a giant shard pull. You'll get like all of this or something. Maybe not this patrol. You'll maybe grab these guys or something. You'll do this pull. And then when your group starts running out this way, you'll stealth back out of the dungeon, avoiding this patrol, you'll swap gear, and then you'll come back in. Honestly though, like this dungeon in particular isn't as useful because you can easily access, you wouldn't do this like after first boss or something. It's just too much of a runtime to go back out and come back in, unless you have like a Warlock in your group and you could double summon. You can also do this in Gambit, except you'll have to pretty much kill yourself by drowning in the water. So you can do like a massive pull like this, you'll blow your cooldowns, and then you can go into the water, die, it'll port you up to the graveyard, you can leave the dungeon, pop a book, switch your gear sets, walk back in, and then you're right here and you'll continue on with another pull. Those are pretty much the only 3 dungeons you can actually do this in. You can technically do it in Theater of Pain as well, except Theater of Pain as well, or with Theater of Pain, when you're typically pulling the first boss, doing like this pull, for example, if you're going big deck, you typically can't run out afterwards, or the fight lasts too long for you to actually run Legacy properly. So let's talk about what those gear sets might look like. So a standard build for a Guardian Druid currently is going to be running this legendary power, Ursoc's Fury Remembered, which is giving us basically free absorbs on our Thrash. So based on the damage you do with Thrash, we gain an absorption shield based on the damage that we do, 75% of it to be exact. So what a damage breakdown in a key, this was a 22 spires. It's doing roughly 38, right? Like 40% of your healing. There are some keys that do a lot more. Let's see. We'll look at this really bad 23 spires I just did. 41%. So anywhere between like that 38 to 48% range. Frenzied Region needs to be way higher than that, but nonetheless, that's the legendary that we typically run. It has a chance for our Thrash to proc an additional time. It's a decent DPS increase, but it's a little bit more RNG. And we're running things like Scale and Hilds, or something like Codex at the first technique. So maybe you would do this. This is a common one. This is also used as well, except I think Scale is a little better than Anal Hide, and Hild in the most like generic scenario. But again, it's totally dungeon dependent. Which dungeons you would use these types of trinkets in. This is what you would run for most of the dungeon, but we have our Big Bear Damp, BBD, Big Black Dick. I should rename that. You would run something a little bit more like this, where we're trading out our cloak for boots on Legacy of the Sleeper. This is going to give our Guardian of Ursoc, our Incarn, a 25% damage amp, a 15% leech amp, and immunity to CC. It does give us cooldown reduction on Incarn, but that doesn't matter as much, actually. And then you're going to trade out one of your defensive trinkets for a First Sigil. And the reason you do this is because First Sigil, it is giving us a massive versatility increase. If I pop this now, you can see down in this lower corner, I go from 27 verse, or you can see here, 27 verse to 53 verse. That is a massive damage increase, like actually massive. And then when you tie that in with things like Ravenous Frenzy, and then you tie that in even further with the Potency Conduit, as well as having like high haste, and then you also pair it with things like PI or different externals or Lust, we get to start doing outrageous damage while running this Lego. Now the problem with this Lego is, yeah, the leech sounds nice, but it's only when Guardian of Ursoc is active. So outside of that, you're missing the 40% healing that you saw on that detail earlier. In order to do this, you need a Sigil, or IQD is okay, but Sigil is going to get you a lot bigger use. If you really want to, you can also use Sigil and IQD, but I like to have Scale as like a kind of a just in case the pull lives for a little bit longer than I want it to. I can then pop Scale as a defensive. And then after we do our first pull, we are then going to swap back to our defensive set and run back in. Now there are a few optimizing things you can do here, like you can be running Brambles, or you can run like Survival of the Fittest, but I found that swapping some of these talents around is actually going to be bad, because the reason why Incarn is so strong is because not only do you have Ursoc's Fury Remembered, but you also have that Earth Warden. So you wouldn't really change unless you wanted to run Brambles, but the gain that you're going to get from Brambles versus Blood Frenzy, it's like maybe 1% damage. It's not great. So you can swap if you want, but honestly, it really comes down to gear set. So let's quickly take a look at a video and see how that's going to work. So you'll see me here in my BBD set, and let's do this, because I don't want to hear myself talk. All right, let's skip forward a bit to get inside the key. How long did it take us to start this key? All right, here we go. So this is going to be a 23 Necrotic Wake, pretty easy key, super clean. Well, the first pull is clean. The rest of the dungeon was not so clean. This is also at like 1:30 in the morning. So we were tired. So if you don't do this already, you should be doing this as a Guardian Druid. You want to be popping Incarn and Ravenous Frenzy on the rip. So we didn't put the key in right away. It's a second or two late, but that's okay. And so keep in mind that we don't have Ursoc on. We have Legacy of the Sleeper. We also have the Sigil button down here. We have our Sigil keybind, and we're going to be using Incarn again during this pull once our Ravenous Frenzy falls off. So we're making sure that we're grabbing everything. We're setting focus to the Harvester. We're pulling everything in next to each other. And I'm going to get PI here as well. And then as soon as I get PI, I'm popping a second Incarn. PI is optional. If you have a priest, great. If you don't, it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. And because of that leech amp that we're getting on top of Earth Warden, we are just actually just pumping numbers. I hit 104k here, 105k I think I peaked at, and this pull just absolutely melts. 106 I think I peaked at, but it just carries. You'll see in the Incarn tracker here, I still have Incarn up for a little bit longer too. And as soon as it's over, I'm popping dash and I am getting out of here. Now, if you have a very slow computer or like a low, I don't even know what would have, there's a lot of factors that can affect the loading screen, but if it takes you a long time to get through the loading screen, I don't recommend doing this strat. And then we're just going to run back in after changing to our sets. So that's how that strat would essentially work. Now my group is here. It gives them time to grab the hammer. which we didn't end up grabbing in this pull, which we could have with Mind Soothe. And then we're going to continue on with the rest of the dungeon, having access to Ursac's to be remembered as a defensive Lego. So that's how that strat would work. I know some of you asked me to talk about it after I mentioned it in my last video, but I just wanted to kind of talk about it here and kind of flesh it out. Is this super, super optimal? It's fun. As long as your group knows that you're going to be doing it, because trust me, people get really spicy if you run out of a key right after you do this pull. So this is some people I push with. So they knew I was going to be doing this. We're just kind of rolling up some of our alt keys, some of our lower keys this week to start pushing this weekend. Let me know what you think about the strategy. It's interesting. I have a few logs have been doing this, but this is the only time Legacy of the Sleeper is actually going to be arguably useful. Outside of this, I wouldn't run it. Obviously stick to Ursac's. The damage, the gain you're getting for this is minimal at best, but when you're trying to optimize your damage just that little bit, these types of strategies are super, super useful. So hope you guys learned something. Enjoy, try this out if you're feeling confident, and have fun for the rest of the season. You'll hear from me definitely a lot more, but just want to get this out there. All right, take care, guys.